Welcome to week 7 of American History Hybrid. This week we're going to take a look at the struggles for change for various ethnic minority groups and also looking at women's rights. Specifically, you should be able to answer the following learning outcomes. You should be able to explain the federal government and their role in how they assisted women in the 1960s. Also, look at the gains and setbacks of various women movements during the 1970s. Also, analyze the Chicano movement and how it shaped Mexican American lives. Then describe the Red Power movement and discuss their successes. And also look at the protesting of the counterculture on American college campuses, and also look at the reasons why the counterculture weakened. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at how music influenced demand for social change during the 1960s. Women's rights, often spearheaded by Betty Friedman in 1964. Betty hoped to dispute the popular notion that women could receive higher education and it would be helpful to society. She wrote a famous book called Feminine Mystique, where she outlines the various criteria that demand an increase of opportunity and fair treatment in the workplace for women. And now, in 1964, women are seen as viable candidates for the first time in American history. We also take a look at the workforce, which comprised about a third of women, and the Equal Pay Act was passed by President Kennedy in '63, granting, again, a new bill that made it illegal for employers to pay female workers less than that of male workers. And we also see Title IX, which eliminated discrimination between genders in the workplace. The organization now, National Organization of Women, was formed, and during the 60s we see a rise of feminism. And again, we're looking at an era where women are demanding social and economic equality within the workplace as well as within society. And the first female caucus is formed, known as the National Women's Political Caucus. And we also see our first African American nominee for House seat, and that person again is Shirley Chisholm. And again, she was elected to Congress in 1972. In summary, some of the major successes of women. Again, accomplishing the Equal Pay Act, followed by Title VII, and the Education Amendment, which again outlaws discrimination in education. Now, again, forming lobbying for political parties for women, and then we see the Women's Political Caucus, which again recognizes women as viable candidates within our government structure. And Roe versus Wade, which puts a limit on abortions. Now onto the Chicano movement. Again, 4 million Mexican Americans resided in the United States in 1960. Some of the things that happened in 1960 are protests. The protests are led most notably by Cesar Chavez, who was a migrant agricultural worker in the state of California. He helps form the National Farm Workers Association. Again, the National Farmer Work Association was faced with the dilemma of unequal pay and unfair working conditions. And later that transpires in the formation of the Unite Farm Workers, which included more than just Mexican Americans. Another main cog to this movement was the student action. One of the large protests was led in East Los Angeles, representing the poor quality of local schools, where they walked out of their class in protest. Police responded by arresting over 13 people. These 13 people were later known as the Brown Berets, which were inspired by the Black Panthers. Politically, Chicanos revived themselves in the 1960s by a man named Rodolfo Gonzalez. Rodolfo Gonzalez was interested in issues other than farm worker rights. He aligned with the Democratic political ideology and anti-poverty programs. He helped inspire the formation of the La Raza Unida Party. La Raza Unida Party was organized, it expanded from Colorado into California, and at the height it had even 1,500 women as participants. The movement, however, died out in the 1970s because the ideology of Mexican Americans at that time became more moderate. All right, and now taking a look at AIM, or American Indian Movement. In 1960, the average income of American Indians was less than half of that of white men. And the living conditions were quite harsh, and employment rates were quite high, and brutality by police was quite evident, and specifically targeting right here in Minnesota. It is founded in Minneapolis in '68. Three of the main leaders, Clyde Bellecourt, Dennis Banks, and Russell Means, they wanted to restore pride within the Native American community. Clyde Bellecourt, again, huge impact here in the Twin Cities. Many endeavors, as you can read. He also coordinated a trail of broken treaties, which presented 20 points on paper of ill wrongdoings of the federal government. Russell Means is probably best known for he was the national director of AIM, but he's also probably best known as the orchestrator of the Alcatraz occupation. He was a negotiator at Wounded Knee. And the occupation of Alcatraz, again, which is what Russell Means is most well known for. And again, that takes place on the island of Alcatraz in San Francisco, where they occupied the island for 9 months, and they were mimicking how the Europeans when Europeans came to America, and they were treated the same way. Again, picture of the island of Alcatraz. Okay, again, another initiative led by Russell Means is the American Indian Movement of looking at the Bureau of the Trail of Broken Treaties. Again, we're looking at several protests that take place. Going slightly back again, I wanted to clarify the Broken Treaties is actually led by Clyde Bellecourt, and then this results in the formation of Wounded Knee in 1973. Wounded Knee, again, is the hope that enforcement of treaties that were made back in the late 1800s. Again, during this movement, they occupied the Bureau of Indian Affairs headquarters in Washington, D.C., and the following year, the most dramatic action, the seizure of the trading post at Wounded Knee in South Dakota. Okay, and another event of the struggles for, again, gaining Native American rights during the 1960s. Okay, as a culmination to much of the protests in the 1960s, it brought a revival of spirituality and freedom for Native Americans. But the things that it did not cure is poverty and returning of the treaties that were made in the 1800s, and there was often corruption found within the public eye amongst these groups. Counterculture. The causes, we see a generation gap. We see the society known as tune in, drop out, young adult baby boomers, again blaming the societal problems on their parenting. Much of the organization happens on college campuses. Why on college campuses? Because again, young minds with the opening of ideas and how to see society. And the most desirable freedom is found by dissolving yourself from establishment. And oftentimes, during this counterculture, people decided to separate themselves from establishment by the usage of drugs, and they altered their clothing into colorful baggy pants, bell bottoms, and long hair, and oftentimes unbathed. There were negative effects, the first being drugs, and free sex led to sexually transmitted diseases. We also see poverty and high crime in hippie communities, simply because much of them were tuning out of the societal conformity, which entails having a job, making an income, and therefore the crime rate escalated. And we also see a shift from established religion to Eastern religions. Most notably during this time, we see a large transition to Zen Buddhism. During this time, there's also advancement in pop art. Again, pop art attempts to create creative images of common people. It draws on popular culture. We see it with many different art forms, especially Andy Warhol with his pop art Campbell soups. And we also see it in motion pictures. And we also see it with a shift of religious beliefs. Again, when we look at the 1960s, 60% or 70% in 1969, according to your textbook, said that religion was losing its influence in American life. And some images of popular culture. As for the music, we see the British invasion by the Beatles in 1964. And following the Beatles came the Rolling Stones, which drew to America in the 1950s. The music, again, was later followed by that of Joan Baez and Bob Dylan. We see Bob Dylan developing folk music. We see Joan Baez also weighs in on the development of folk music. And really, early in Bob Dylan's career, he was pushing for a political message. And we also look at African Americans and their in the role of the Motown community and soul. And we see many the emergence of the Supremes, the Temptations, too, amongst many other Motown music groups that formed during this time. Oh, and then also James Brown and Aretha Franklin, so four notably well-known Motown singers and groups. Again, Woodstock is the apex of the counterculture. Again, it was a music concert held in upstate New York, where in 1969, where over 400,000 young people made their way to the concert. During the concert, there was terrible rains. Many people were found in knee-deep mud, severe shortage of food and water. And although the concert remained peaceful during that time, notable musicians that were at the concert, Jimi Hendrix, Joan Baez, and Janis Joplin. However, it was much more than just a rock concert. It was a celebration of an era at its high point, that being the counterculture. 4 months after, the Rolling Stones had a free concert at Alamo Raceway near San Francisco. At the concert, a security team made up of members of motorcycle gang. That motorcycle gang ended up enforcing the motorcycle gang enforced unruly behavior by stabbing a young African American to death in the front stage. These two events kind of were the apex and the decline of the counterculture for the 1960s. Please again review the beginning learning objectives, and that will complete week 7's work.